Republican senators, joined by Democrats Manchin and Sinema, voted to block an attempt to change the filibuster rule last night that requires a 60-vote majority to pass legislation. Democrats wanted the change to pass voting rights legislation that addresses a long list of new voter suppression laws passed in many states across the country that go far beyond voter IDs. North Dakota Republican Senator John Hoeven did not speak on the Senate floor, but sent out this statement that says in part, quote, "This is exactly the type of extreme partisan legislation that the filibuster was meant to prevent. Accordingly, I voted to preserve the Senate's filibuster rule and against the Democrats' attempt to strip states' authority over elections," unquote. However, Minnesota DFL Senator Amy Klobuchar pointed out on the Senate floor before the vote that the filibuster rule has been changed many times to allow a simple majority vote, most recently under Trump, to get legislation passed.
This isn't something from 100 years ago. This isn't something from before we had cars and people were arriving here on horseback. This just happened. In addition to changes to the cloture rule itself, the Senate has put in place exceptions to the rule. In fact, over time, the Senate has established over 160 processes in statute that allow a final vote without requiring 60 votes for cloture to end debate. In other words, you get to a vote without the 60 votes. As a result, we have expedited procedures, including, get this, reconciliation to pass spending and tax legislation, the Congressional Review Act to block regulations, disapproval of arms sales. I guess someone decided that was okay to do for less than 60 votes. Even approving compensation plans for commercial space accidents doesn't require 60 votes, my friends. But while the 60-vote threshold was carved up 160 times so senators could pass things like tax cuts under President Trump, block regulations, and confirm Supreme Court justices, when it comes to voting rights, we are told that traditions and comedy means that we should hug it tight, this old rule, throw voters under the Senate desk, and go home. It's no wonder that our Republican colleagues' support for the 60-vote threshold rings hollow when their priorities, such as tax cuts, such as a Supreme Court nominee, can be passed with a simple majority. Time and time again, the majority in the U.S. Senate has had to change the rules to help pass major legislation. As Senator Merkley has noted time and time again, bills we have passed after the majority has modified the rules include the Natural Gas Policy Act in 1977, funding for the Selective Service System in 1980, deficit reduction legislation in 1985, a moratorium on listing new species under the Endangered Species Act in 1995, and a change made by the majority in 1996 to the reconciliation process, which paved the way for the 2001 and 2003 Bush tax cuts and 2017 Trump tax cuts. When circumstances change, senators have changed the rules time and time again. All of this history clearly shows that the Senate rules are not chiseled in stone. That's probably a good thing, because we get that the people out there need us to do our jobs, and that maybe that's more important than some archaic rule that someone is now abusing. They are not an outside force, these rules over which we have no control. They are our rules, the senators' rules, yes, but also the people's rules, written and changed over the years by senators representing the people of this country, just like the ones sitting in this chamber today. As we move forward, I want to make clear that I agree with my colleagues who have said we must keep the history of this institution in mind. By the way, I just gave you the history of this institution.